Back to another episode. We are going to be going over the Snatch today. I was going to do this in one episode, but I decided I'm going to switch it into two. The first episode, so the one that we're going to do today, is just going to be over how to snatch, basically. How to get yourself from point A to point B. And there are a lot of common problems people have with snatching, and it doesn't make sense for us to go over how to progressively stress the snatch movement and apply it in workouts if you don't even have the proper mechanics to do it well in the first place. So the first thing, and this is the kind of main thing here, is that snatching requires mobility. This should be obvious to you if you've ever tried to, go and do a snatch before, whether it's in the gym or during a CrossFit class, whatever. The primary things that I find are either limiters for people or just the main things that I'm seeing in the gym are internal and external rotation of the hips. So being able to get into that deep squat position and having the hip mobility that allows you to get there. Ankle dorsiflexion, obviously we need to be able to flex the ankle. Now you can use Olympic weightlifting shoes, of course. Most people do a little bit with keeping the torso more upright and afford you a little bit more mobility, but you still need some level of ankle dorsiflexion, and this kind of ties into that hip mobility. Where you miss on ankle dorsiflexion, you need to make up for with more hip, hamstring, and knee mobility, and so it's kind of a balancing act between the two of those for the lower body. In the upper body, you need to have great thoracic extension, so you need to be able to keep the upper back, rigid, and you need shoulder external rotation. So you need to be able to externally rotate the shoulder so that you can get the bar slightly behind you so that it's, the force is coming down and over your midline, right? So if we are lacking those mobility components, then it's probably a good idea that we go and address those. And I'm not going to go super in depth on how to do those. We'll go over it in the next one. But go talk to a coach at your gym, go see a physical therapist or a physio, and they should be able to help you kind of address some of those. You can show them the positions you're trying to achieve, and they'll be able to assist you more directly with what you need to get better at. So things that I give to my clients that I think are valuable: box overhead squats and SOTS press. So this is simply getting into an overhead squat position and then doing a box squat. This gives you a target for your mobility, or your depth, I should say, and that can be beneficial for some people who are lacking the kinesthetic awareness of how deep they need to go into the overhead squat. SOTS press would be sitting down on the box below parallel, so at a depth that puts you around below parallel, sitting like you're in a squat, not sitting straight up with your whole body at a bunch of 90-degree angles like you're a Tetris piece, but being in that more angled off position and doing SOTS press seated on a box, and allows a little bit of help with a SOTS press, but then you can progressively make it harder, which will kind of build up not only the mobility, but the strength required to maintain those positions with a barbell overhead. Classic one that we see a lot of in CrossFit is the wall-facing overhead squat. This one is taught in the level 1, and it's a good one for building the upper back and thoracic extension. Pass-throughs are also a good one for that. Regular pass-throughs are fine. You can also do pass-throughs in a squat. You can do prone pass-throughs on a bench. You can do weighted pass-throughs if you have a really, really light barbell. Weighted pass-throughs is another one that I've played around with personally. I'm very cautious about dosing that with clients. I only do it if they have really, really strong and healthy shoulders, but it is a way to build strength through the full range of the shoulder if it is appropriate and you are strong and comfortable with that movement. The T-spine openers we can do on a foam roller and just kind of open up the upper back. And then any sort of behind the neck snatch grip pressing variations I like for building that position of having the barbell slightly behind the head. And so for these, we're looking at behind the neck snatch grip press, and push jerk. I find that those can be beneficial at helping build the upper back up a little bit, build the position of pressing the bar behind the head. And it's a little bit more contextual. So one thing that I think gets mixed up is whether or not you have a mobility problem in the T-spine or in the shoulder, right? And so the two different ways that this looks, and we can go back here. This guy has a mobility issue in his T-spine, right? Probably in his hips and ankles a little bit also, but here you can see he's actually got a good amount of shoulder external rotation in order to support the PVC pipe over his midline, right? Like if you look, the PVC pipe is actually over his midfoot, right? And so from here, we know that he has good external rotation of the shoulder. It's almost too much external rotation of the shoulder. It's not a very stable position, and it's somewhat compensatory for the fact that he's missing some of that ankle, hip, and thoracic extension. And so for this guy, we would assess that he has some limit of thoracic mobility and probably some hip and ankle mobility as well. All right. For the T-spot, or for the shoulder mobility, oftentimes what we see is people want to keep the bar in front of them. And so if they have poor external rotation of the shoulder, usually that involves somebody pressing the barbell forward in front of them slightly. The elbows are usually a little bit softer, and they're feeling like they're pressing into the bar the whole time that they're doing an overhead squat. And this is different from when we lock the shoulder out and we lock the elbow out and we're pressing with the upper back into the barbell, like I'm shrugging, I'm pushing the scapula up. There's a much different press into the barbell than feeling like my triceps and front delts are tired from holding my arm in this like bent position with the bar overhead. Okay. And this is a picture of what I'm talking about. So you can see here, this guy has good T-spine mobility, right? So if I look at the picture on the right, his upper back's actually like pretty solid. He has good hip and ankle mobility, good enough, I guess. But you can see his external rotation is pretty poor. And this is not uncommon with people who are very muscular, like this guy. Oftentimes it's like a pec minor or just your pec in general or your front delt. If you do a lot of bodybuilding, a lot of pressing movements, it's hard to externally rotate the shoulder through that range of motion. And so building up external rotation, opening up the chest a little bit can be beneficial for folks that are in this position. And then this is another example of where I really like that behind the neck press or the behind the neck push press to help develop that position and feeling what it feels like to press with the bar from behind the head and fully extend and lock out the shoulders and the elbows. So you got a shitty squat, we want to fix that. Things that we can implement in training that are going to help a little bit with that are pause squats, ankle mobility, shin box, and then just don't be an asshole. So for the pause squats, I find that these are really beneficial for controlling range of motion all the way to the bottom. They keep you honest because if you take a video and you watch it and you're like, I'm not pausing below parallel, chances are you need to lower the weight and do better. Ankle mobility, we can do like ankle dorsiflexion drills against a wall or like a post or whatever. You can look those up. They're simple, easy. You can do them before you train. Shin box, that's 90-90 sitting on the floor doing internal external rotations of the hip. Those I find are the easiest to do. They're simple. You can do those before and after a workout. I've used them before in my training and my mobility. I really like them. I have clients who really like them. I don't see anything wrong with them. And they're simple and they're easy to implement. And I think the big one here is just don't be an asshole. Like if you can do full range of motion squats and it's just your ego that's preventing you from going and squatting deeper because all you care about is how much weight is on the bar, then it's not really a problem that any program is going to fix. It's the problem that's between your ears, right? And so understanding that you will have to make some form of regression in order to fix your shitty mobility so that you can go and lift more in the long run is part of the sport. It's part of what is going on here. And if you're not willing to accept that and make those changes, then I would just be prepared to have a lower expectation of the kind of results that you're going to get from snatching just in general, because you're not going to be able to outlift your shitty mobility. Especially in a movement like the snatch. Snatch to back squat ratios are on the screen here. For those of you that are just listening, 1RM snatch, if it's between 60 and 65%, really anything over 60% of your back squat, then the best way to get better at snatching is probably just going to be to get stronger. Oftentimes that indicates that you have great technique and the limiter for you is probably just strength. If your 1 rep max is less than 50% of your 1RM back squat, then you probably have a technique limitation. You could probably work on your technique a little bit. And if you're somewhere in between, then you should just identify what is holding you back. When people are in between there's usually like a specific weak link in their strength. Maybe it's like lower back strength that's preventing them from getting further, and maybe it's lat strength. It's different for everybody. Or there's a technique limitation that only presents itself when weight starts to get really heavy. And if that's the case, you just need to be filming and watching and identifying where you're deviating from what you think is ideal for you, and then making adjustments in your training using technical like drills and stuff to prevent that from happening in the future. So how do we get stronger? This one's simple. It's squat heavy, close to failure, 2 times per week. Picks movements. You can do the front squat, you can do back squat. Really, those are the only 2 that I would choose between for your like primary strength driver. Run a cycle for 4 to 6 weeks. Do 15 to 25 reps in a given session in sets of 3 to 5 reps at a time. This will usually get you within the realm of like having the weight be heavy enough to elicit a strength response. You get close enough to failure and you're not overdosing volume too much. You want to pick accessories that target your weak points. So I would not pick the deadlift as a primary compound movement for the snatch. Even on pull on the snatch, the biomechanics of it are more closely related to a back squat. So regardless, I'm still picking squat for my strength driver on the snatch. But when I'm looking at doing accessories, let's say I've got like a limitation, my lower back tends to be the thing that fatigues, or I'm not able to keep it wound up the way that I want in the snatch, then maybe I'm picking, you know, hip extensions or RDLs. If you've got weak quads, maybe it's cyclist squats. Rear foot elevated split squats are great for the glutes. Good mornings, glute ham raises, all of those are good options. So I'm just picking a couple accessories, maybe 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 10 reps, taking them close to failure, making it really hard, maintaining a lot of mechanical tension. And that's really gonna just kind of like help. That's where I'm gonna be plugging my holes, but the overall strength work is gonna happen with a squat. So if you are not strength limited and you have poor technique, the best advice I can give to you without seeing your technique and understanding what your limitations are through the screen would be to watch video of yourself and watch video of other people who are actually good at it that have the same type of body as you. So someone like me, who is a tall, lanky, white dude, is not going to snatch with the same technique as some of the Chinese weightlifters, right? We have totally different anthropometrics, and so it would not make sense for me to try and shove myself into that box of technique, right? Similarly, if you have really short femurs and you're a short guy in general, trying to mimic dudes like Klokov or Lasha aren't gonna translate quite as well because you have different biomechanics in them. So watch people who look similar to you in terms of their body like positions and anthropometrics, and then try and emulate them. Watch a lot of video of yourself, identify where you look different from them, and then try and address that in your training. Identify where you're going wrong, pick drills and complexes that address that weakness. And when you are earlier on in the sport, or if you have less experience, you need to get a lot of reps in. And so in order to get a lot of reps in, the weight just needs to be lighter, and you need to do more like complexes and technical movements that aren't just lifting heavy. All right. So a way that I've done this with my clients is I'll give them like some prep work, some complexes that they can do where they're getting a lot of opportunities to like get the bar off of the hip and practice the turnover. And then we will slowly increase the weight and take some of the complexity out of the complex. And then I'll allow them to try and apply some of that technical adjustment that they've been making throughout the day in something a little bit heavier towards the end, but it's never like max out every day. And so we'll be able to see that here. It's like they're doing those SOTS presses, they're doing the slow pull snatch, one that I really like, with the hang snatch. So that he's getting a lot of practice on the turnover there. Then he's just gonna go to the slow pull snatch. So he'll go and be able to lift a little bit more since there's fewer reps, obviously. And then he's gonna take the slow pull away, he's just gonna snatch heavy, but it's like focusing on applying the technical changes that he's making earlier on in the training to this, heavier attempt that he's going to make. It was far different than just going and maxing out, right? Because then we don't have any practice ahead leading into the heavy snatching. And then you can see I've got his, strength stuff in there for him. This is kind of like how I would approach snatching if I was new to the sport, didn't understand where I was going wrong. It is what I did. I watched a lot of hook grip videos and weightlifting house videos of other people just lifting really well. You have to practice, but to a certain extent, there's a limit to how frequently you can snatch, especially how frequently you can snatch heavy, especially if you've got other training priorities related to CrossFit. So watching video of other people doing it correctly can be beneficial, and I think that's part of being like a student of the sport. So that's all I've got for you today. That's the first part, and that's kind of an overview of what snatching entails, how I would go about, programming snatching and identifying whether or not you have a mobility or strength limitation and how to address either one of those. In the next episode, we'll go over how we can apply varying levels of stress to the snatch in the context of a workout, so that if, you've got 30 reps for time at 225 or 155, you understand how to train for that and what energy systems are involved in that versus doing a 1 rep max versus doing something like Randy where you do 75 for time. And so we'll go over that in the future. Email, Instagram, DM me if you have any questions about this. Like, subscribe, it helps the channel out a little bit. And then, DM me on Instagram if you've got questions about any of this.